Fan out. What is this thing, Mr. Spock?
A time portal, Captain. A gateway to other times and dimensions.
Behold. A gateway to your own past, if you wish.
First, I want you to get assassins, murderers, killers.
Spock! If that is a doorway back through time, could we somehow take Bones back a day in time, then
Relive the accident. This time be certain that the hypo-accident is avoided. Look at the speed with which the centuries are passing, Captain. To step through on precisely the day we wish.
Guardian! Can you change the speed at which yesterday passes?
I was made to offer the past in this manner. I cannot change.
I'm a fool. Our tricorder is capable of recording, even at this speed. I've missed taping centuries of living history which no man before has ever...
Dr. McCoy! Bones, no!
Where is he?
He has passed into what was.
Captain, I've lost contact with the ship. I was talking to them. Suddenly it went dead. No static, just nothing.
Kirk to Enterprise. Scotty. Nothing wrong with the communicator, sir.
Your vessel, your beginning. All that you knew is gone.
McCoy has somehow changed history.
You mean we're stranded down here?
With no past, no future.
Earth's not there. At least not the Earth we know. We're totally alone.
Captain's log, stardate 45944.1. Following a magnetic wave survey of the Parvenium system, we have detected an object which we cannot immediately identify.
Magnify. Mr. Data?
It appears to be a probe of some kind, but there is no Starfleet record of this shape or design.
Is it scanning us?
No, sir, but it has assumed a relative position and is holding course with us.
The probe is composed of parisium and talgonite, a ceramic alloy.
Not a very sophisticated technology.
Sir, I'm detecting a low-level nucleonic beam coming from the probe.
Shields up. Standby phasers.
The beam is scanning the shield's perimeter. The probe is emitting an unusual particle stream.
Sir, the beam is penetrating our shields.
Increase speed to... Captain. It's all right.
Captain, I got you.
Oh, finally. How are you feeling? Cayman? Can you answer me?
What is this place?
Oh, you're still feverish.
Computer freeze program. Computer end program.
Cayman.
Picard to Enterprise.
Cayman, please don't get up yet. You're still not well.
I asked you, what is this place?
This is your home. Of course.
Hello, and welcome to the program. That was a clip from 2 Star Trek episodes, the first being The City on the Edge of Forever. It was from the original series. It first aired in 1967. And the second one being The Inner Light. It was from the Next Generation series, and it first aired in 1992. These 2 episodes will be the topic of our discussion today, along with conversation on how they demonstrate the power of storytelling that Star Trek did rather well. But first, let me welcome the panelists. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I appreciate it. So here we have 2 episodes that, in many circles, is considered some of the best storytelling of Star Trek. They both relay narratives involving time, beauty, love, sacrifice, tragedy, and they were able to do so within the parameters of an hour-long science fiction television program. And for the viewers, to let you know, each of the panelists have already viewed both episodes in full. So for the program today, we will watch 2 montage clips from each episode and then discuss each episode as a whole. And I'd also like to talk about the storytelling qualities of Star Trek and how these particular episodes demonstrate those qualities. But first, to kind of get us started, I'd like to go around and just get your initial thoughts on both those episodes. We'll dig deeper into each episode as we watch the clips, but I just want to get your initial reflections on what you thought. Mike, let's start with you. What were your thoughts?
Sure. Well, I thought the 2 episodes I watched, I'm not a big Trekkie fan, but I think someone made a comment, might have been on some forum, that Shakespeare would have been proud of the way these were both written. There's so many themes of friendship, love, mortality, and the acting was, I think it was really well. Again, I watched mainly the first season of Star Trek, and I thought Captain Kirk there, he did a fantastic job as far as his acting ability in this particular episode. And I think somebody like Bones, he must have had a lot of fun playing that part. He was like a madman, so I could see him really enjoying that. And it just looked like they were true friends at the end. Where, again, those themes were to me, I was impressed with the writing of the whole 2 of those series. So,
right, very nice. Brian, what about you?
I like them both. I mean, I was actually very, very impressed. Actually, one of the big things I really noticed was like the difference in the quality of the sets going in between like the original Star Trek and like Next Generation. And it almost seemed like the original one was filmed like, yeah, we invested maybe $100 on the set. We got to pull some stuff from the dump and then kind of set everything
They had
up.
a very limited budget from my reading, but go ahead.
Yes, exactly. But no, I guess going back to like the storytelling and the acting, it was, considering what they have, I was actually impressed. And even with the the first episode with Captain Kirk, I mean, I thought they did a really good job of trying to show how Captain Kirk kind of fell in love with the woman in a relatively short period of time, and trying to like portray that to the audience. So I thought I thought it was good.
And that's not easy to do within the confines of an hour. Actually, less with commercials.
Like a 45-minute show. And, and even like with the the second one. Well, first off, I noticed that Jean-Luc Picard definitely had some guns. I guess he's been spending some time in the gym
he
working
did look
out.
like he.
I was like, look at him like that. He's guy's looking pretty good there. I mean, I hope I look that good at that age. But no, even that one, I was really, really impressed by showing the. I always thought it was a very impressive like thought exercise of like what would happen if I woke up one day and someone was calling me by a different name, it was a completely different place, and like at what point would I slowly start to accept this is my new reality?
Right.
So it was interesting.
Good thoughts. Tim?
Yeah, I would say so. I have been watching a lot of Star Trek. I've watched Star Trek more of my life now, I guess, than not. But these 2 episodes definitely stand out. City on the Edge of Forever is, it's the older show, but it's still really good and does a lot, like you guys are saying. It kind of bridges across all of the different things you could do with like a I guess I would say like it's like a TV play almost, Yeah. It's like that one kind of covers everything and has all these interesting thoughts. And then with Inner Light, I think it's much, it's definitely more modern. But I think the story, I don't know, it's unique. It feels like it's all like compact and tight, and very well executed, without being, like it tells lofty themes with a very intimate story, I guess, right? Whereas the other one feels like it's telling a lot of, bigger picture things in a bigger picture way. But I would say that the thing that I really like about both of them is both of them sort of stand to. There's moments where they speak to what Star Trek is about, right, without kind of hitting you over the head with it, and the themes like really ring true in both of those episodes for what the whole show is about, right? So,
right. Yeah. Makes you think about a lot of things, and which is the whole point, I think, of storytelling, which we'll maybe get to a little bit on the show.
Yeah.
Good. Karen, what about you?
Well, I am new to Star Trek.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up with it on in the house, but I never really watched it. I may have watched like half an episode. So these were the first 2 episodes that I really sat down and watched the entire thing, and I was quite impressed. One thing about the first episode is it felt very much like a play, and that might be due to the limited set budget. Right? Yeah. And I was impressed with how much they did with just that little bit of space, like that time portal, the jumping through the time portal, and you felt like you're actually jumping through the time portal with them, and you're in another time. So, in that way, it was very impressive for a show that was made at that time. And of course, the acting lended to that as well. And then the second one did, as you had said, feel more modern. And I love the soft lighting. It was kind of like a very different thing. Yeah. Though Joan Collins in the first one, they gave her the soft lighting. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah,
like nobody else had it, and then her, and she's all like kind of angelic. But really good, thought-provoking episodes. So looking forward to delving into them some more.
As a kid, I grew up obviously watching the reruns of Star Trek. My father liked it, and that sort of brought me into it. And I remember City on the Edge of Forever as a kid, and it was always one of my favorite episodes. It's just that, wow, this is so neat. You just jump through this portal, and and it just makes you think about so many things. When Kirk says there, how compelling, you jump through there and you're in another time and place, and you're just like, wow. And then the other one for myself, Next Generation, I did watch The Next Generation, but not as much as the original series. But I still appreciate it. I still appreciated the storytelling, and I particularly like The Inner Light because it touches on a lot of things of mortality and sacrifice, and things that, personally in my own life, I start thinking about that I've come more in touch with as I've gotten older, people around me and this sort of thing. And it does make you think about a lot of things. And that's the beauty of, I think, Star Trek, which we'll get a little bit into, about how in science fiction you can set this whole other world and play like a play, and just let's explore a theme here, where in modern day society that might be a little more difficult. You have a little more room to play. So that's why these 2 episodes always stuck with me. We're going to go into our first episode here. We're going to watch a montage clip of The City on the Edge of Forever. And back in the day, I have a VHS copy of it. Yeah, and then they have this and so forth. And I thought to introduce this first episode, The City on the Edge of Forever, I would read the back of the box, how they advertised it. An accidentally drugged McCoy, lost in time, causes a change in history, requiring Kirk and Spock to go back in time to set things straight. Arriving in 1930, Kirk falls in love with Edith Keeler, played by Joan Collins, only to learn that for time to return to normal, she must die. So, heavy stuff. So, The City on the Edge of Forever. Let's take a look.
This is how history went after McCoy changed it. Here, in the late 1930s, a growing pacifist movement whose influence delayed the United States entry into the Second World War. While peace negotiations dragged on, Germany had time to complete its heavy water experiments.
Germany. Fascism. Hitler. Won the Second World War.
Because all this lets them develop the A-bomb first. There's no mistake, Captain. Let me run it again. Edith Keeler, founder of the peace movement.
But she was right. Peace was the way.
She was right, but at the wrong time. With the A-bomb, And with their V-2 rockets to carry them, Germany captured the world.
No.
And all this because McCoy came back and somehow kept her from dying in a street accident, as she was meant to. We must stop him, Jim.
How did she die? What day?
We can estimate general happenings from these images, but I can't trace down precise actions at exact moments, Captain. I'm sorry.
Spark. I believe I'm in love with Edith Keeler.
Jim, Edith Keeler must die.
Oh.
If we hurry, maybe we can catch the Clark Gable movie at the Orpheum. I'd
What?
love to see it. You know, Dr. McCoy said the same thing.
McCoy! Leonard McCoy?
Yes. He's in the mission. He's...
Stay right here. Spark! Stay right there. What is it? McCoy, he's in... No, Jim!
Deliberately stop me, Jim. I could have saved her. Do you know what you just did?
He knows, Doctor. He knows.
What happened, sir? You only left a moment ago.
We were successful.
Time has resumed its shape. All is as it was before. Many such journeys are possible. Let me be your gateway.
Captain, the Enterprise is up there. They're asking if we want to beam up.
Let's get the hell out of here.
So there we have it.
Classic episode.
Yes, it is. Lots to talk about. I just love how Bones at the end, he's coming out of the building and he sees them. I always thought from his perspective, this guy accidentally overdoses on this drug, wakes up in this whole other world, has no idea, and he's like, I don't know if this is real, and then to see friends of yours like. Just the joy, that, I thought that was like, Jim, imagine you woke up.
I think I would comment on that too, because I would say, I think the pacing of the show was really good.
Yeah.
And that's, definitely just true of the whole episode. But that scene in particular, the pinnacle of the episode, the arc kind of lands there, and then they see each other, and you're excited for them, but also you know what's going to happen. It all happens at once, which is really nice. That's what makes it so.
You go from one emotion to
Exactly. So it's you're excited. You're like, oh, good, they finally got back together. They're together. But oh, wait, the thing's gonna happen. Right. So it's really well done.
Yeah. I just.
But you're totally right.
From his perspective, imagine you wake up and you're in the 1930s, and then finally you see the three of the four of us after a couple days, like Tim. What the hell happened?
That was something we kind of hold you back. You're like, I could have saved that girl, but this got right over by. I'm so confused right now.
Yeah. So, go back to when they first went through the portal. The Guardian was there, and Kirk says to Scotty, wait as long as you think you should, and then each of you should go back, and at least you'll be alive somewhere. First of all, the whole concept that in a second somebody jumps through something and everything you know is gone, because time has changed. You've done something. that's wild. But then to say, hey, listen, we want you to wait around, and but I can understand why Scotty said you were only gone just a moment, because if it didn't work, after like a minute, because it's bringing them back anyway. Like, you're not going to sit around and wait a week on that, in the ruins on that planet, because if all returns as it should, they should be back any second. That's the way I would think about it. How long would you wait?
Plus, they went back in time. So
Yeah.
time is, it's kind of, it's
Right.
different. You're back in time, so that time is already gone.
Already
So
gone.
I could say being minutes or seconds because of what you said. But what was also interesting is, which I found is kind of startling, where you had to have a peace activist die to save the world, which is it's a pretty wild concept. Whoever thought of that, it's
Yeah.
kind of unusual. So I think some people could say, oh, whoever wrote this is a warmonger. You had to sacrifice a peace activist. No, I don't think at all. I think it's just that I would look at it like this. And another theme that I thought of, why did it have to end why did that woman have to die at all? Why did Joan Collins have to die? Well, if you believe in this so-called butterfly effect, where if you touch anything that happened in the past, which there's been many movies on this type of thing, if you affect that at all, that could change everything. So I think her dying had to take place at that time or in that way, versus I'm going to bring her back into the future, into today's day, to save her. That way I don't have my heart broken. But so I thought that was a good concept to make sure she does die, so that whole past doesn't change to a point that it would affect other things. So it was interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting theme.
I also would say, I think you're hitting on some very interesting things with what is it saying? So, what is it saying about her being too early for a peace movement to exist? And why is, I guess what I'm saying is, what is the show saying about that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it does read, you know what I mean? I'm not sure it does read, perfectly to say, hey, okay, World War II has to happen, and America has to get involved, all that stuff is, there are some outcomes that are well, yeah, kind of I want to talk, I guess we dialogue, right, about it, but it's not, really necessarily as interesting as I think what you're kind of getting at, and I didn't think of, which is that butterfly effect was probably, and I'm kind of going to place yourself, 1967, was that sort of a concept that was sort of, I don't know, kind of revolutionary at the time, hey, something in the past, what if you impacted it? Could that impact your future?
Yeah.
And the episode was kind of getting at that, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
there's
wonder
been
how
a lot of
many
movies now, but at the time.
You wonder how many, whether it was movies or books, where they had that theme about a butterfly. Because the butterfly effect came from, it was actually about meteorology, where it said if something took place in a weather pattern, you could have this pattern go this way and this pattern go this way, but if something happened, you could have this go in a different direction. So I think the point was you cannot predict what future weather is going to be because of this so-called butterfly effect, because everything can change, and then of course the butterfly's wings could change the weather pattern. So that's where that came from. So
yeah, it's very interesting.
It is, and to talk about what you were saying, that she's a peace activist, and I thought the dialogue was brilliant, because Kirk says, but she was right, and then Spock says, she was right, but at the wrong time. And right there in 2 sentences, I got it. You're
It's
yeah.
time.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's like time. You can't really, you
Timing.
could be at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Things happen at the wrong time, right?
Overall, yes, she's right, but yeah.
And it goes back to a poem that we're familiar with. Everything depends upon a red wheelbarrow. I mean, certain things affect other things. So it's so many changing things in history that if you could go back in time and affect those particular events, you could change many things in the world. So.
Definitely. It was interesting, too, how when Bones jumped through the portal, the master, what was the guide?
The Guardian.
Guardian, thank you. How he said, well, you can't get on your ship now because he just changed the present moment. And then they had to, of course, jump through the portal to get to the past moment in order to get back, but then discover that they were going to have to let this woman die during it. So so the folks that were waiting for them to come back, they wouldn't have been able to get on their ship anyway. But it's nice that it only took a little time. So it was really cool. Go on a minute.
I would say that was actually good good writing. The writer wrote books too. It was
Harlan Ellison. Yeah.
So, but it's great setup because in an instant their ship's not there.
Right.
And then when they get back, in an instant
it's there.
Right.
You know, it's like, so they already set up that like, well, why wouldn't it have taken so long? It's like, well, because in an instant your ship was gone. Right.
Right.
It's really
That's why I say if it didn't work, Scotty would know almost immediately.
Right.
Because,
that's fair.
Talking about that butterfly effect, I was thinking about how. Well, why? At first, I was like, when I was a little kid, I was like, well, why couldn't he just sit her down and say, listen, we're from the future. You don't go after this piece right now because of the situation. I'm like, no, it wouldn't work because she'd still be alive and she would be living some life, doing something else that's then going to alter something else. So I'm like, no, that's the only solution. She has to die, as sad as that is.
But it's funny, I did think trying to pull her, because again, you're talking about Captain Kirk, he's in love with this woman. To avoid that heartache, you drag her back into the future or to the present day at that time. And I said, well, maybe they just wouldn't do that in Star Trek episodes, but I guess we have seen that in future, other Star Trek episodes where they have done that. They've taken people from the past, they've dragged them into the present time to avoid something bad happening to them as individuals. So yeah, it's interesting.
It was like the fourth movie.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Yeah, I remember that scene too.
Yeah. So she comes to the future,
right.
and it's like, oh, no big deal. She had no life there. It's not always consistent.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think I would say.
Yeah.
That's what I guess I was trying to say, right? The World War II thing. It's sort of like not as interesting as what we're talking about, but there is an element with Star Trek sometimes where it can be like, and it has to happen this way. Like this particular situation, it has to happen this way. So World War II has to happen, and all that pain and misery has to happen. Is like, it's not what the story is about, but it is there, right? Like that's a questionable, I think, thing to be saying. But at the same time, like that's not the important part of the story, I would say. Like the important part is butterfly effect and peace activists at the wrong time. I think those are the important themes that it's trying to go across.
What did you guys think of? It was written by Harlan Ellison. It was but to make it a suitable script, I've read.
It would be interesting.
Gene L. Kuhn had his hand in it. Gene Roddenberry had his hand in it, and D.C. Fontana to sort of polish it up because I think from my reading, Ellison had these, and then 100 people chased them through the streets. Well, they were on a budget, and no. So it had to go through several drafts to get it where it was. But I liked the elements of humor in it, and I think that probably came from maybe Roddenberry or Kuhn. The thing about where he had explained Spock's ears.
Yep.
They got it.
That's a funny scene.
Mechanical rice picker. The elements of humor about the bearskin and stone knives, and he's like, Captain, I must have some platinum.
Yeah.
Did you like the humor? That's like a warmth touch to these characters.
That's. I think back to Mike too. It's like DeForest Kelley was definitely having an awesome time playing his unbuttoned version of himself. He's always so buttoned up, and like angry, So that was probably wicked fun.
He must have had a blast. Yeah.
But I think that stuff adds a human element.
Right, which is important. We're gonna tell this grand story, but we're gonna go. So we need to keep it you need to care about these guys.
Right.
And it's always fun to watch in shows like this where you're used to seeing them in their space outfits. And how they find their ways to assimilate into the daily routines of another time, another place. And the humor was definitely, it was appreciated seeing that too.
What did you think of Joan Collins playing Edith Keeler in the character of Edith Keeler? She talks about, she has these wide, positive visions for the future. Any thoughts about her? Could you see why Kirk fell in love with her almost instantly?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I could see that because she probably had these things, based on the story. She had these things going on in her mind. Probably never shared that with anyone. So maybe she was a stargazer, and all of a sudden she meets up with Captain Kirk, and then she's able to have these conversations because he seemed open to that because he's coming from that. So that was interesting.
That gets into, I think, for me, it's less about the actual characters, but she's definitely like the vocal point of the show. I feel like, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is Star Trek about? There's a point, and I forget exactly what she says right now.
That's a good point.
But there's a point where she's in the soup kitchen. She's talking about what the soup kitchen is about and what it's like, what its mission statement is. and like that is
A life
basically
worth living for.
the show. Like this is what Star Trek is about.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think like
sure.
it does that a lot with her character,
Which
is good.
That is good, and that's one of the qualities of the storytelling of Star Trek that we can touch on is the positivity for the future. It's not this dystopian that you will see, it's not Blade Runner.
Yeah.
It's, hey, we can all work together and there can be a sharing and diversity and we have this common goal and, Edith says our deserts will bloom and we will, that's exactly right. And that's sort of uplifting, especially in a time where we live in a time where we're always worried about this or that. We need more of that, I think.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, so pretend it's you. It's not necessarily Edith Keeler, but this is you. You have to go back. You have to go find this guy. First of all, would you jump through the portal? I guess you'd have no choice.
Yeah.
I guess you have to.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
You have to go after your friend and help him out. Sure.
Right.
And I can't get on my ship anyway. So am I going to die here?
In these ruins?
Yeah. No choice.
No
really.
food, no water.
Yeah.
Took a lot of bravery, though. A lot of bravery was needed to do this.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you go back and you fall in love with somebody, and it's a deep love. I mean, would you be able to do that? Let her die, or let him or her die, and knowing that it has to happen, or millions of others who lived will die. Could you do it? I guess you have to.
That's a tough one.
It's almost like that philosophy question where it was like, all right, you're standing on a bridge, and if you have to push this big fat guy over in order to save all these people, like, would you do it? And or versus like, it sounds like one of those philosophy questions.
Yeah, it's like the train.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think you would probably, human nature, you would probably try to find another solution as opposed to letting this woman die. You're really in love with her.
I don't think there was, though.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, I'm sure Kirk, if this is a real thing happening, he probably had that going, what can I do to avoid this, the love of my life, dying, when I know I can help her avoid that happening? Maybe still come up with the same solution in the end, where the peace activist doesn't take place, and the war goes with the way it went.
I guess I'd say like the end scene works really well because of that. It's like, what would I do? He didn't have to really it was sort of, he made a choice, but he didn't really make a choice, right? It's like, my gosh, everything happens at once. My friend's back. This is the moment. I didn't know it was the moment. He holds McCoy.
Held back.
But maybe he say, you know what I mean? Maybe he would have let it happen in a different timeline
Yes.
kind of thing,
Right.
Because it's kind of all happens at once, which is, I think, the beauty of that ending. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm toying with it. How can I do this differently? And then when it happens, he does choose to let it happen. But yeah, would you be able to?
It wasn't like he was pulling a switch.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine
Right.
if you love someone that you're going to let that happen. But the way it played out,
it's awful.
He's just like,
It was
let's get
almost
the hell
out
out
of
of
his
here, right? Very something with Spock,
The end of it, yeah.
he's like, how'd it go? We were 6 seconds.
Right. And from their perspective, Scotty and Lieutenant O'Hara, they're like, well, it's not, you could tell that they could see something was up.
And also at that time, this is what, 1967?
Yeah.
This is on television. For Captain Kirk to say, let's get the hell out of here, that was a big deal.
Right.
You could not use
That's
that
right.
word
That's
way
right.
back in 67, but they decided because it was, I think it was a big-
He was pretty upset. So
yeah.
let's show that with that
They
word.
let it go. I guess they had to get permission from the network to do that. So
I
yeah,
think I read that, yeah.
Yeah, so times have changed. Haven't they?
Yes.
We've,
Then much of it was like, let's get the HE double hockey sticks out of here.
what's interesting is, and I was looking at that VHS box, and it would give you the running time of a show. In the 1960s, an hour-long program on commercial television, it was 52 minutes.
Wow,
52
not as many
minutes.
commercials back
Yeah,
then.
there was maybe 4 commercial spots, but what's that, 2 minutes apiece? I mean,
Yeah, we live in we probably have an ad running right now
ads.
at the bottom of this video.
Buy this.
and the other perspective is McCoy. Like, he doesn't understand why Kirk prevents him
Right.
from, and he has to catch on very quick, because they jump right back through the portal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
So what did Spock say?
He knows.
He knows, Doctor. He knows.
Yeah.
So.
If I were him, like, I'm so confused right now.
Someone explain to me.
I want the dialogue. I want the voiceover. I want something. So, like, I wake up, I'm on this other planet.
There was some fun there too, by the way. With I think not just the Doctor's acting, but like he also like I always love when they do it happens in the movies a lot where they go back to the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
The fourth movie, and it's like, oh, all of this technology is so barbaric.
Yeah.
It's always so funny to me because I think we say that about 19th century.
And they'll be talking about our time in the same minute.
Dial-up internet. What?
You drank water? That's crazy.
It's like, oh man, all this medical stuff is awful. What are you cutting people open? Like, what are you doing?
I remember that
It's
from,
really fun.
yeah. Well, let's take a look at our second clip that we're going to watch today on the Inner Light, and I don't have a VHS from that one, but I did have the DVD that I bought.
High tech.
And they list the episodes.
Not a Laserdisc?
But yeah, let's read the little synopsis on that. The Inner Light. In this Hugo, by the way, both of these episodes won the Hugo Award, the writers did. In this Hugo Award-winning episode, Picard wakes up on an unknown planet with amnesia. A woman convinces Picard that she's his wife, his name is Kamen, and this planet is home. As Kamen, he lives a long life, worrying about the planet's increasing temperature. After an eerily familiar rocket launch, Picard discovers the tragic truth about his family and his past. So, let's take a look. The Inner Light.
Kamen, you're back on your feet. How do you feel, my friend?
You in charge here?
In charge?
I want to be returned to my ship immediately.
What ship is that?
Please. My name is Kamen.
Yes.
You are?
Batai. Council leader, Batai.
Ah. Batai. Did you say I've been ill?
For more than a week. Helene should have put you in the hospital, but she insisted on caring for you herself.
Helene?
Your wife.
Don't you want to ask about us?
Of course. Anything you can tell me will be helpful. We're married.
3 years ago.
And what do I do here in Russia?
You're the best iron weaver in the community, at least I think so. You prefer playing the flute, of course.
The flute?
Yes.
When did I learn to play this?
I'm afraid you never did, dear. You do keep trying. Pulse and blood pressure are normal. I'm getting hyperactive fibrogenic activity. This is odd.
What is it?
There's no evidence of any injury or trauma. Vital signs are normal. But neurotransmitter production is off the scale. What's going on?
This probe is doing something to him. We named this child for a dear friend who died a year ago. For now, his memory will live on in his namesake.
We name you Batai.
Hey, that's my hobby. Find your own.
Oh, you're the one who taught me. Don't complain if you've turned me into a scientist.
What has the scientist been up to today?
Analyzing soil samples. There isn't any anaerobic bacteria. Soil is dead. This isn't just a very long drought, is it, Father? Father, I think I should marry Danik sooner rather than later. Don't you?
Seize the time, Maribor. Live now. Make now always the most precious time. Now will never come again.
Remember. Put your shoes away.
I promise.
It's time to go see the launching.
What launching? What's he talking about?
Sending up a missile, Father. We are going to watch it.
Did everyone know about this except me? What is it they're launching?
You know about it, Father. You've already seen it.
Seen it? What are you talking about? I haven't seen any missile.
Yes, you have, old friend. Don't you remember? You saw it just before you came here. We hoped our probe would encounter someone in the future. Someone who could be a teacher. Someone who could tell the others about us.
Oh, it's me. Isn't it? I'm the someone.
Yes, my love. The rest of us have been gone 1,000 years. If you remember what we were and how we lived, then we'll have found life again.
Helene. What? How long? 20, 25 minutes.
We were able to open the probe and examine it. Apparently, whatever had locked on to you must have been self-terminating. It isn't functioning any longer. We found this inside.
Well, there we have it. That's it's a very moving episode. It makes you think about a lot of things. Could you imagine being in Picard's place? You live a whole lifetime, or at least you think you did, and suddenly you wake up. How would you be able to handle that? Could you handle that?
Well, I mean, to me, it was more or less a dream. That's what I would say. But it was a very vivid, very long dream.
That's only 25 minutes. It's powerful.
What hit me about that episode is when he talks about living now.
Yeah.
And I can relate that to my personal life because I remember when I was a young guy in my 20s, had my first kid swimming at Fogland Beach, and I remember this old guy was he had to be 90, and he's swimming with a bathing cap. He goes, "See this right now." He goes, "This right now, this is it. This is it now, enjoy this." I'm saying, wow, and I saw that, I'm like, wow, that kind of brings back memories. And then my dad, who was in his 80s at the time, he started saying this. He was getting a little senile, but he would say, "Tomorrow's not yours, tomorrow is not yours." So I think in Picard's case, he was older, at least in his dream he was older, and he just realized, hey, life is so short. Enjoy it now, because this is it. This could be over at any point. So you got to relate that now to life in general, even though it's science fiction, but it's like, yeah, this is real life. People they should think like that as they get older and realize, hey, this life is so short, you know?
And I think part of that was he knows the planet's dying, and everyone's running out of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
That really affected me too, and I've often quoted with that when I'm talking with people, like, make now the most precious time.
Yes.
And you are reminded by that as you get older and you see people pass away that you care about, and you're like, yeah, I got to make now. But yeah, it's very powerful. Yeah. That's a good thought.
Yeah, I think go ahead. In the world too, there's the episode. It's also kind of talking about, and you see this today with everything on the internet, and I guess other things to that point. He knows the planet's dying, but they still continue. He's like, seize the day, get married. have the kids.
Yes.
And he's at the end when he's like hanging out with his grandchild, he's like, he's just sad that the grandkid won't live a long, full life. But it doesn't mean that he should, like, he didn't, the message isn't not to have the grandkid. The message is not to hold off, right? It's to just live it as fully as you can. And that can be seize the day, you know, for yourself and the people you love. But also, like, there's no reason to, I like kind of love that part of the story. There's no reason to stop living. You know, you hear about that all the time. Oh, things are so horrible. Why would we bring kids into this world? Because we're just here.
Yeah.
Right. This is all we have. You're in the time you're given. You don't get to choose. These people are living in a time where the world, like their world, is ending, and they're still living. And then that message when they get right, the end is like, hey, we wanted to make sure people knew who we were.
Yeah.
It's even more powerful. Like I love that part of this episode.
Yeah. Same.
Absolutely. There's a really big theme there about just ancestors as well, like even within the story, but just outside of it, even just this idea of honoring your ancestors by remembering them, whether it's people that are in your life and are still alive and it's current, or grandparents that you remember from many years ago.
Or the friend, like honor the friend, naming his son or whatever.
Exactly. So much about honoring is, that's a big word in this episode for sure.
Right. The writer of this episode was Morgan Gendel. I think he might have wrote part of one of the movies as well. But it was powerful writing in that regard. One of the things I thought that I liked was it was kind of sad in the same way, but when Maribel comes out to talk to her father, and she's like, Father, the soil's dying. You taught me to be a scientist, and I forget what the language she is, to accept the truth no matter where it will lead you. And that's scientific thinking. Even if it's hard, we have to accept it. And I think about our own time as we deal with climate change and the burning of fossil fuels. You can see where some people, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want, but science is understanding the truth. And like you were just saying, let's keep living. Let's try to, but I thought that was powerful, because I have a daughter, and then I'm like, what kind of planet am I leaving her? And I kind of thought about that when I saw that scene. I mean, am I leaving a planet, or am I, let's not give up. Let's just keep doing things. But it is powerful.
Yeah, and I would say, to your point about one thing where we talk about storytelling here, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing this episode's able to do is say, code that message of climate change into world-ending destruction, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's this, whatever, supernova or whatever, right? Is happening, so the planet's going to blow up, oh well, or whatever, like the sun's blowing up. So nothing we can do. But in two things, I guess. One, it's all done sort of environmentally and through like all the dialogues, but you see the things dying in the background, right? Like the planet's just getting worse and worse over time, which is nicely, without telling you, it's showing you.
The like up writer.
Yeah, and it's like, but also that, what were you just saying?
Time passing.
Oh, that it's like, it's showing climate change.
Yeah.
And like, hey, we need to be present, mindful of that, right? And then there's this element of, they talk to the politicians.
Oh yeah,
the bureaucracy.
The administrator.
And he knows, right? The point, I guess, is like, right, that they know that it's happening, and they don't want to make everybody afraid. But it's able to say all those things in the guise of a sci-fi episode.
Right, which is very good. I remember the administrator, like, you will see that this participatory government will work for you, or whatever. Really watching that. I even see Picard, it's just kind of like, it will not happen. We won't get our, whatever it was.
Interesting.
Really ringing true these days.
Was it water collectors?
Yeah.
Yes.
Atmospheric water collectors?
Something like that, yeah.
I thought the actor that they chose for the administrator was perfect too. I mean, he definitely had that politician air about him.
You're right.
It's like, you look like you're full of beep.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he's like, "Oh, we've known about it.
Yeah.
You can't expect it." It makes you wonder about our time. If they do learn that an asteroid is going to strike the planet, would you rather not know and have the government keep it quiet, or would you want to know? Stuff like that you think about.
I would definitely want to know, but would they tell us? Is really
right. Would they tell us?
Right. Luckily, there are a lot of citizen scientists with their own telescopes.
I don't think they can keep it. Yeah.
Right. That's true. There was social media. Everybody would find out.
Yeah.
Is it real news or not real news? An interesting thing about this episode, too, I had a couple of thoughts. So I was thinking about, folks who have, are going senile or dementia, Alzheimer's. There's something hopeful about when someone is kind of seeming out of it and saying things like, oh, but I'm on this planet and I'm playing flute, and I've got a daughter and I have a wife I didn't know I had. There's something interesting about that as far as when we think of people who are, losing their mind or going senile and not how they used to be. This thought that there could be these beautiful things happening in their minds, like this, like a whole episode of, but no, really, I am playing flute right now.
That's fascinating.
There's just something, I don't know, kind of hopeful about that. And then also the timelessness of music, right?
I thought about that
the
too,
flute coming through time in that little probe, and then there he is, playing the flute.
You know what I
got
loved
better
about
as
it
he
too,
went along.
is that as the season goes on, and like the show, I don't know, it's like season 4 or 5 or something like that. He actually continues playing the flute. They bring it in later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he keeps playing it. So I loved that episode. Like when I first watched it, I was like, oh, that's a really powerful moment. And then he plays the flute in the later episode, and he tear in your eye. You're like, oh yes, he had lived a whole life, a whole year ago kind of thing. It's really good.
Yeah.
Really well done, storytelling.
I think, like you were saying, a powerful dream. And we've all had powerful dreams. You ever wake up and it takes you a little while to kind of center yourself?
Yeah.
But it goes back to what you were saying, our sense of reality. I mean, we think our reality is right now we're having a discussion about this and, and we're recording it. Little do you know, you're staring at a wall in a corner or somewhere. I mean, we, obviously.
Right, like this wall, right? You might think this is actually real.
But you
just don't know.
You're ruining the illusion. But your sense of reality is.
What is reality?
Yeah, think about that. True. One thing I wanted to talk about was the probe itself, and it was brilliant. They didn't have the technology to do much, but they have the technology to do this. So you give them a little. You have to suspend belief there a little bit. But what it made me think about was the Voyager spacecraft that the United States launched in the 1970s, and how each one of those was sort of a message in a bottle. There was the golden phonograph record with images and music from the Earth, and those are out there well beyond the solar system, going out into interstellar space. And so those are sort of what we're doing, what they did. That's sort of we didn't do it with the idea like, hey, our sun's going to go nova, but it's out there, and maybe a billion years from now somebody will find it or something, and we were here. Yeah, we were remembered. Yeah. And that's where I went to. I always like this idea that we're all mortal, but we live on in the memories of others, and I think this episode speaks to that. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the only negative on that, again, is science fiction, but they sent this probe out, and Picard has that in a dream. No one else knows about it except for him. So the memory is only with him, because then the probe is gone. It died. So that was kind of, which brings me to another point. So there's been writings recently on the concern, if you're looking at people in the future going back to look at our time, they've been getting rid of so many, the way data is stored now, it's all electronic. So say there's a complete holocaust where there's no electronics anymore, there's nothing to look up. All that's blown away. So it's not like now, archaeologists are digging through.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So it's a lot of our history could be, swept out.
And we think it'll all hold on forever because it's everywhere.
Exactly.
Right? But actually, it could be nowhere very quickly because it's all like imaginary.
It's in the cloud, but
it's
now
all
the cloud's
zeros
going.
and ones.
Yeah. That's interesting. I remember reading an article about how, remember when we used to take pictures with actual film?
Yeah.
And photojournalists would go to events and they would just take roll after roll after roll and they'd get them developed, and they'd probably use maybe one or two. The rest, well, they paid for them, They have the physical form, were just put in a filing cabinet and they were stored. And what they found was that over time, such and such, when nobody knew that person as a politician or somebody else, they were at that parade or they were at that event, and they were able to pull that video or that footage. But now, because of, you delete everything because we have to save space on our hard drives and this and that, we're losing that. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting.
Yes.
So that kind of speaks to that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I think you were kind of saying about not immortality, but you were saying about,
You live on in the
legacy.
memories of others.
Like, that's true, and I've also been doing, just got hobby grade into, like, history, and it's like, truly, a lot of history is just, like, the only immortality you can have. You live in the collective memory of human existence, right? Like, I don't know, I did a lot of Roman Empire stuff, right? So you're like, the Roman Empire, and what, all of the names from that period were well documented. Then there's, like, actually a period that, like, right, things aren't well documented, and we've pieced it together, and we know the names. We don't know as much, right, about the culture at those time periods where it's not as well telegraphed to everybody. But, like, collectively, we have those memories of our past. And that's, like, the only real immortality, kind of to your point.
That's
like,
interesting.
Your memories of the people that you loved, right? They only live with you as long as you keep the stories going. But then we also have that, like, larger collective memory, which is very, just kind of interesting to me.
Yeah. You could say
sort of what they're doing in that.
Right, and I agree with that. But you say, okay, we only live as long in the memory of someone, and then that person passes away. Well, the thing is, someone was alive and they shaped you, even in subtle ways. You then interact with somebody else. They have kids. So in a way, we are moving it along. So there's some positivity to that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Let's touch about the storytelling of Star Trek with the few minutes that we have left. What I think is brilliant, science fiction is really good at, hey, we're going to set this, we have the universe as our grand stage, and we're going to, with Star Trek, you can go on another planet, another time, and we can have this play, this theater, and explore different themes. And I thought both these episodes were able to do that rather well. And sometimes, Star Trek, maybe not particularly in these two episodes, but they have, they've explored a lot of social commentary with, racism and, paradise versus the struggle to work and exist, fascism and this and so forth. They're able to say, not have it so in your face, like, oh, it's here now, but we're going to put it on this other planet and we're going to explore it there, and where people will then maybe watch and go, oh yeah, So it's kind of ironic. You have to go elsewhere to look back on yourself, Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that Star Trek's particularly good at doing that. I mean, sci-fi is as well. This is a mass media version of that, but it's also really good at coding its messages, is what I would say. Like, it knows how to say, let's talk about, there was a few episodes about, I guess, queerness or LGBTQ stuff is, like, totally coded, and you can't really read it unless you know what to look for, right? But you're totally right, there's also, like, race and all kinds of other things. What is war crime? Like, why is it justified? Like, all this stuff. And as I've been watching through it, like I said, Deep Space Nine deals with a lot of that stuff, and it's been very fascinating to kind of dig in and just be like, oh, these episodes are about the theme of not the theme, sorry. These episodes are about the plot, right? But really it's not about the plot, right? It's about these other very human things that are happening.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think it reminds me of when you're young and like very young and you're being read books. And the themes in the books, you're just like, oh, that's a really cute squirrel, not realizing that there's a message in there that ends up kind of being incorporated into you. Where you're like, oh, okay, maybe I will be kind to the chipmunk or whatever. And it seems like a similar thing where in those sorts of books, you are being given a message as a child. Maybe your parents will tell you also be kind to the chipmunk, but it's easier in a way where it's in this other world that you become part of. So as with the science fiction, you can see how that's just a great way for that sort of storytelling where you add in, social
Right.
commentary.
You can digest it
And good, that's somewhere else. I guess I can,
Say
I'm glad
this.
it's not here.
Safely over there.
Exactly. Not realizing it actually.
And then later going, huh.
Well, I
got
guess
me.
it is right.
Kind of like how too it's like they don't focus any attention on it. Like during like the original series, like Aurora, Takai. I mean, it's not like yes, Aurora is a African American woman who is. It's just like
Right.
she's.
And that's that whole
just
idea
here.
of Star Trek, yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was always kind of amazing, and even like the Next Generation was still a very very interracial group of actors that were basically playing all the characters.
It's very mindful of that.
Yeah.
I think almost all the way through.
Yeah.
Of being diverse, and like that's just from coming from where it came right from. It kind of rang through all the way. It never really loses that.
And even like the modern series, they kept on expanding that and expanding and expanding. Even like the was it Discovery?
Yeah, it's like
with
the new one.
Michael Burnham, like the one actress that plays her. I mean, she's like very very strong, powerful character that's flawed, made a huge mistake, was able to build herself back up again.
I also think, especially in this day and age now where, they're banning books again, down in Florida and different states, that whether it's sci-fi or some type of literature kind of giving a message, whether it's, against fascism, whatever it is, even a book, obviously an older book, Animal Farm. I mean, books like that.
Think about things.
Continue to be produced, whether it's sci-fi or books like that, movies, to have you thinking about that versus not putting your blinders on and saying, hey, the government says you should do this, or this book's banned because of this reason. So I think it's things like this, it kind of keeps your mind open and you have more flexibility on the way you think about things.
I agree. Well, that is a good way to wrap that up. Very nice. Well, I enjoyed this. Thank you all
Thank you.
for being on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. Please join us next time when we hope our guest will be singer Rick Astley. Cheers.
That soft lighting, I feel like, is used on all the female.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is there a girl in this?
She's
Put
so
a soft
beautiful.
light. Yeah, exactly. It's always a halo.
Totally.
Put them in barely any clothing except for this one.
Oh, yeah, I know.
You know what? That's not fair. She's supposed to be half
You
naked.
guys should have soft lighting too. And be happy.
Exactly. Oh yes, exactly.